Hey guys, it's Mr. Cavanis again, and this is part two of the Introduction to Biology. We're still discussing the branches of biology, and the next one on the list is one of my very favorites, and that is genetics. And I think you're going to find genetics to be quite interesting as well. Genetics is the study of heredity. That is how physical traits and in animals, sometimes even behavioral traits, are passed down from parents to their offspring. The man that you see pictured here is one of my favorite people to talk about in biology. His name was Gregor Mendel. He lived in the middle part of the 1800s. And Mendel was interested in figuring out the answer to a riddle that had bugged biologists for a long, long time. And that is this mystery of how it is that babies look a little bit like their mothers, a little bit like their dads, how that works, what the mechanism is that allows a physical trait like eye color or hair color or height to be passed down somehow inside the sperm cell, inside the egg cell. Nobody had any idea in the 1800s how this worked. And the man that figured it out was this guy, Gregor Mendel. And what's really interesting is he figured out the basic rules, the basic laws that govern how genes work with regular garden pea plants. He noticed that pea plants have a lot of variety. Some of them have flowers that are white, and other pea plants have purple flowers. Some pea plants are tall, and some are very short. Some of them produce seed pods that are yellow, and some have seed pods that are green. And he figured that these must be inherited traits, that somehow every pea plant inherited those characteristics from its parents. And he wanted to learn how to predict that and how to understand how it works. And maybe what's most astonishing about Gregor Mendel is he essentially figured out how genes work without ever knowing what a gene is. And remember, this guy lived in the 1800s, and DNA wasn't known about. Chromosomes had not been discovered yet. The structure of DNA wasn't figured out until about 100 years later after this all took place. And so Gregor Mendel figured out how genes work, but never knew what a gene really is. And what he did was kind of neat. He would take a pea plant that has white flowers, like this one here, and he would take some of the pollen from one of the white flowers, and then he would use that and bring that pollen over and transfer it onto the reproductive parts of a purple flowered pea plant. So, excuse me, it's what we call cross-pollination. So he's literally mating a white flowered plant with a purple flowered plant, and then he would wait until the seeds formed, and he would plant those seeds, and he wanted to see what color flowers will the offspring plant produce. And he did this many, 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 many times for about almost 10 years and collected data and was able to work out the basic rules and laws that explain how heredity works. We'll spend a lot of time talking about genetics, and I'm not making it sound as interesting as it is, but I really do think you'll enjoy it when we get to it. All right, the next one on the list is molecular biology, and you can see it has in its name the word molecule basically built in here. And so molecular biology is the study of molecules, the study of molecules that are really important in biology, like proteins, and especially DNA. You're looking at a DNA double helix in this right-hand picture. Very heavily overlapping with the study of molecular biology is the related field of biotechnology. Biotechnology is the manipulation of living organisms or molecules found in living organisms like DNA to solve problems, to make life easier or better somehow. and it often specifically refers to the manipulation of DNA. So a couple of examples here. DNA fingerprinting is a method that's utilized to compare samples of DNA. If you collected a DNA sample from two different people, you can compare their DNA sequences using this technology to figure out whether they have similar genes or maybe how closely related they are, if at all. DNA fingerprinting can be used for paternity testing, that is to figure out who the father of a child is, and also sometimes can be used to prove the guilt or innocence of a person that's facing a criminal charge. Genetic engineering is a really exciting field within biotechnology where individual genes are taken from one cell or sometimes one species and moved into an entirely different species or an entirely different cell. And genetic engineering is used to improve crops, for example, to make corn plants that are resistant to insects. So you don't have to spray chemical pesticides on your corn crop anymore. Or to make rice plants that are more nutritious. Many medicines, such as insulin, which is used to treat diabetes, is now synthesized by genetically engineered bacteria. That's something we'll talk a lot more about later. Really interesting field. And biotechnology is especially important for us here in North Carolina because our state has the third largest biotech industry in the nation. So just real quick, some of these pictures on the left-hand side, the plants that you see, I believe those are genetically modified rice plants. And so the researchers in this lab are introducing genes into the rice plants so that when they eventually produce rice, it will have higher amounts of beta carotene and will therefore be more nutritious for people to consume. In the upper right-hand pictures of the three kittens, you'll notice that when the lights are turned out, these kitty cats glow. It's called bioluminescence. Now, there's a protein in their skin that's lighting up, and it's a protein that cats do not normally have, obviously. The protein is naturally found in certain species of jellyfish. So what happened in a research lab is they literally took a jellyfish gene and inserted that gene into the cells of the cat embryos. And so because these kittens have this jellyfish gene, they produce the jellyfish protein and they can light up. Now, this is even more interesting than it sounds on the surface because if you think about it, it's a little odd that cat cells know how to read and interpret a jellyfish gene. And the reason that's possible is because all living organisms, every bacteria, every fungus, every plant, every animal, including every jellyfish and every cat, have the same genetic molecule, DNA. And DNA is a molecule that contains a code, a coded message that tells our cells how to build proteins. And even though this is a gene that's been introduced into these cats that they normally don't have in their cells know how to read that code because it's the universal code of life.